我们开始喽。Let we start. Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We're students from Curtin, Singapore, and today we like to learn more about your entrepreneurial journey. So, to start off, we like to ask a few questions about your background. First, could you tell us about your educational background?
Okay, so so my highest education is a master's, so it's an MBA. Okay, but for me, it's not about whether you have an MBA or a degree, but what is more important is actually how you apply what you learn. Okay. But so to answer your question directly, all right, I studied mechanical engineering, I studied production engineering, okay, but I never used it. All right. So 40 years ago, I also learned how to do coding. But even though I've never used it, but as you may understand, all right. When you learn engineering, you are taught to do things in a certain way. All right. So that you're quite driven, you are quite systematic. All right. And the way they teach us, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're able to apply in work life, in other words, how to solve problems, then you find that even though you don't go back to engineering, but really it's the problem solving skills lah. Yeah. So while individually we know how to solve problems, but at the end of the day, if you want to manage projects, okay, you want to manage projects, you need to understand management. Yeah, so to understand management, that was the reason why I went to study management because I felt that I needed the financial know-how, the HR know-how, all right, to be able to relate to, how I manage people, how I manage resources. Okay, so at the end of the day, yes, education is very, very important because without the education, you don't have a structured way to approach problem solving. But as I also mentioned earlier, you can have all the skills, you can have all the knowledge, but if you don't have the opportunity to apply, I think, all right, then you cannot relate to theory to practice. So I was very lucky. I was very lucky that in the process of studying, because I belong to a generation where many of us, I say work and study at the same time. 我们叫做半工半读啦，对吗？
Yeah.
Okay, so because I belong to a generation that work and study at the same time, so I was able to apply theory to practice. And that was really made what my so-called education relevant. All right. If you don't apply to theory to practice, I mean, even you have a master's, it's also no use. Okay.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. And before starts your business, what kind of work experience did you have?
Okay. So as I mentioned, because I was able to apply theory to practice, right? So in every problem that the company gave me, all right, I was able to approach every problem in a systematic and organized way. But more importantly, I was able to then also make sure that my other team members, okay, understand what we are trying to achieve because you can't achieve everything by yourself, right? Now, because of the approach that I've taken, all right, in helping people or solving people, uh, the company actually gave me almost all the opportunities when they have a new business they want to start within the company, new initiative what they want to develop in the company. All right. So because of that, I have experience in starting a lot of new things. Even though I'm using other people's money, I'm using the owner's money, not my own money, right? Okay. So so that gave me the confidence in starting my own business. Yeah, because I mean, in our generation, we call that an intrapreneur. That means an an entrepreneur within an organization. So because I've been performing as an intrapreneur in my organization for, in fact, if I think back, for 35 years, right? Whenever you are thrown a challenge, you are thrown a problem, you have to think of new ways of solving. The moment you have to think of new way of solving, think of new ways of getting customers or addressing problems, you become, in my generation, they call it entrepreneur, right? So because of that experience, therefore, when I decided to become an entrepreneur, it was not a problem for me, all right? Because that's something I've been doing, I mean, for almost 35 years already. Yeah.
Yes, that sounds like valuable experience.
Mm.
Okay, lastly, what motivated you to start your own business and what factors influence that decision?
Okay, so I started my own business about what, 2.5 years ago. So by right, you see, I'm now 63 years old. By right, a lot of people my age will want to retire already, right? Correct. Okay, so the question is, why? What's my primary motivation? To be frank, when I left my old organization, I mean, it was unexpected or sudden, but then guess what? Because as I said, for the earlier 35 years, I've been helping a lot of people solving problems. Anybody has needs a solution, they will come and find me. So immediately on the next day, people start calling me up. They say, "Hey, Ping, I have this problem. I need you to help me solve. All right, I got this thing. I need you to help me grow because they know I'm now available. All right. Okay. So my primary motivation is because when friends ask me, my natural tendency is that I like to help them. Okay, since you asked me, I'm more than happy to help you, to solve your problem. But in Singapore, you will find that uh, uh, if you want to help people, you have to basically, there are some things you can help them by just helping them and that's it. But there are some areas where you want to help them, you have to have a proper business because you have to be licensed, right? Like, for example, my travel agency business, I have to be licensed. All right. I have to make sure that the government approve it. I have proper credentials. Because why? In a travel agency business, a lot of people collect money and they just disappear. So the government 在这方面他们管得很严呐。So because I have to be licensed, therefore I have to start a company, right? And that's how actually my company came about. To be honest with you, because people ask for me to help, I say, yeah, no problem, I can help you, no problem. But then I realized that in helping them, I have to talk to hotels, I've got to talk to uh, operators, I've got to employ tour guides. So to do all this, I need to be properly licensed. So that was my motivation. Okay. And yeah, and the other thing is that since many of my experience have come from, I would say, events side, MICE side, travel side, and many of them are also now very much focused on sustainability. And since my relationship and knowledge are all in that space, yeah, there's no reason why I should not focus on the space that I'm comfortable with. Lah. Yeah, okay.
Okay, that's really inspiring. I'm now pass the time to my teammates for the next set of questions.
Okay, Pony. So we've covered your educational background, work experience, and the motivation behind starting your business. Now, I'd like to move on to your initial goals. When you launched the business, what are your goals at the time you start the venture?
Okay, so the thing that I always tell people, right? I mean, it's not just for people at my age, like even for people at your age who are younger. All right. I mean, everybody want to do things that they are passionate about. I think that the key word here is passionate about, right? Okay, because there's only so many hours in a day and you only have limited time and resources. Yeah. So my goals was very, very, very clear. Right. Since people are coming to me for advice, then I'm passionate about mice, so I will just look at mice programs. I'm passionate about corporate incentive. I'm passionate about experiential learning. Okay, so what I wanted to do then is to just focus my time and effort in areas that I'm passionate about. That's it. All right. Yes, there may be other people who will ask me to, hey, Pingy, could you help me with this? Then I will then evaluate, how serious they are, whether they have resources to bring it forward. If they don't have resources to bring it forward, then I will not do it. Okay. Because you want to work with partners who are also as committed to a project that they want to do as you are. All right. Okay. So So my goals, I would say, are pretty focused in the core area that I like to do. Yeah.
Yes, it's great to hear about your clear and purpose-driven goals. To build such a business, you must have strong support. Besides financial resource, what sort of resource and network did you have when you started the venture?
Okay, so your question is beside financial resource, right?
Yes.
So I would say the first thing is you okay, first you need to have the industry experience. All right. Okay, because without the industry experience, nobody will come and talk to you. Right? When they want to talk to you, obviously they need something from you, and they probably will know that whether you can deliver or not. That's one. Now, as I mentioned earlier, um, really in today's world is all about collaboration, right? Because now to be able to collaborate, you need to know who should you collaborate with. Like for example, you do marketing. Okay, are there media partners you can collaborate with? You want to do outreach? Are there event partners you can collaborate with? Yeah, okay. So, like one of my important Chinese client in China, the first question she will ask me, Benny 有没有资源 Okay, that's the first question. 有没有这个资源？如果你有这个资源 if you have this resource, then it's easy for us to work because once they know that I have these resources, I'm able to execute and deliver what they want of me. Correct? Okay, so many of these resources really center around, my relationship within the ecosystems, or even if I don't have existing relationship with the ecosystems, how quickly am I able to build up a team and guide a team? All right. So bottom line is really if you're not looking at financials, your network becomes very important. Yeah. Okay. Next
Okay.
question.
Okay, your experience and network are truly impressive foundation. Every startup involves risk, so I'd like to ask about your attitude toward the risk. What was your risk or orientation when you started the venture?
Okay, whether or not I started the venture or not, like even when I was running big events, all right, in even when I'm using other people's money, right? When I'm working for people, whenever I'm using other money, I always tell people, I always tell my managers, when we manage a project, we're actually at a senior level, you're actually managing risk. You're actually managing risk, meaning you look at, for the work that you are involving your whole team in doing, how much revenue can you bring in, correct? Versus what are the expenses you must incur in order to make sure that your team can deliver on a good project. Because if you take in people's money, right, and you don't resource the team appropriately, you don't give the team the right skills and the right tools, you cannot deliver to your customers, correct? And then over time, your brand will fail, your project will fail, and then your team is going to be very unhappy. Your customers will not come back to you anymore. So when you ask, what is our risk orientation, I would say that as long as you approach every project that you take in a very analytical manner, all right, you you properly and correctly assess the resources that you need to put in to make sure that you can deliver, okay, as well as the revenue that you need to be paid in order to be able to deliver on the services, then you are okay. Now, the other thing that I also looked at is that not everything you have to pay money, right? So, but if you have got good partners who is prepared to collaborate with you, to work together with you, to share the financial risk, but of course, meaning also sharing the rewards, that's also another way to build a business lah. Okay. But of course, if you want other people to help you share the risk, then you also have to share the rewards with them. So it all boils down to getting your financials done properly. All right. You need to have a very clear goal. You need to be very clear on your P&L. You need to be very clear on your line by line cost items. All right. And because and then of course, at the bottom line, you ask yourself, how much revenue should I take in for this project so that I pay my staff fairly? I make sure that if my staff needs this tool, I have the funds to give the staff the tool. If the staff needs to make 3 trips to see the client in order to get it right, make sure that I have the financial resource to fund that. All right. Okay. So the staff don't have to think about, the project failed. Okay, if only I had this or if only I had that. So you shouldn't reach that situation. Correct. So financial planning is really key, right? In order to manage your risk. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Now, I will hand over to my team member for the next part.
Next.
王永博。
Oh yes, of course. You must have a business plan. All right. I mean, actually, to create a business plan, I think it's not difficult. First you need to understand, whether there's a need in the market for the service that you want to offer, 对吗? Okay. Once you understand the need, then you also need to be very clear of the kind of services and also the value, right? That means the cost of the service, how much people are prepared to pay. Yeah. All right. Now that's number 2. Well, and of course, once you understand how much people are prepared to pay, then you see, how much time or resources you need to service, the client. Now, as long as how much people are prepared to pay versus how much you need to service, if you have your plus, then you put your minus, and there's a profit, then you say, okay, fine, maybe this can work. Yeah. But just like many things, you don't have to pay for a lot of services if you think that you don't have enough cash flow. Then you can see whether you can find partners, because sometimes partners need services also, right? Okay, so leveraging on partnerships and network become very important as well. Okay, because why? Because when you talk about partners and networks, these are people that you work with before, you know how they work, they trust you. Okay, now then of course the other thing that you also will have to watch out for in your business plans, okay, is to also make sure that you take into consideration your indirect costs, because often than not people look at their direct costs, but they don't realize there's a lot of indirect costs. I give you an example. um, like when you're working full time, your company may give you $100 phone allowance, right? But when you run your own business, you're still paying your handphone, right? But now you have to take into consideration that handphone cost into your indirect costs. So you have to take into consideration all these things into your indirect costs. Yeah, correct. Because without your handphones, without all these things, you can't run your business, right? So sometimes, so one of the reasons why sometimes a lot of people don't go into cash flow problems is that they only look at direct costs, but they don't look at indirect costs. Yeah. So having a clear business plan, which is not just about the service that you want to provide, but how to make sure that it is profitable is also very important for the long run. Okay, so I'm not talking about business plan from the point of just writing. Writing a business plan is very easy. Okay, it's easy to write a business plan. But also, what is also important to make sure that you have the financials to actually show your business can actually work. And so a business plan must also include the financials. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, okay. But obviously, the thing that you need to watch out for is, unlike when you're working in a company, in a company 你有很多资源嘛. So sometimes you assign a job, in 2 days time you can get the job delivered, right? So when you are an entrepreneur, so sometimes when you assign a job, depending on how much you're prepared to pay, of course, the more that you're prepared to pay, the faster the work get done. But if you're prepared to pay normal rate, then just like everybody, you have to queue lah. Correct. All right. And so that's number one. And number two, also because when you start a new business, means often than not, sometimes you are starting a new startup, a new initiative, right? You may be very passionate about your startup. You say, hey, this is exciting. But then again, the market will take a while to understand what you're offering, right? So the market take up may not be so fast. So I think you also need to allow for that. Yeah. And also, I talked a lot earlier about, the importance of partnership, but also partnership also takes time. Okay. Because last time when, let's say I'm a full-time staff, if I want to do a partnership, people may want to move fast. Why? Because 他需要我的资源, so they move very fast. Correct? But now when you're an entrepreneur, all right, your partners may also understand that you may not have a lot of resources. 你没有后面没有那么多资源, so their priorities may be a bit different. So you just need to be aware of that lah. Okay. And of course, in my case, in my business, like some of the students will know, I also have many businesses. I have a travel agency, I have a news portal, I do something for sustainability company, right? I was a consultant to the Macau side. So yes, you want to start a lot of business, and everybody come to you for help. But at the end of the day, what you need to do is to decide, how do you want to prioritize your time? How do you want to allocate your resources, right? Because your resources is not limited, or it's not unlimited. So prioritizing of time becomes very important. Okay. So yeah. And if you ask me, all right, at the end of the day, really is about being able to adjust to the market conditions. I think that's important. Um, Being able to also invest in people, all right, whether it's the experience or inexperience, and you need to also think about creating long-term value. Because just like any business, I mean, you're looking at immediate, you're looking at short term, you're looking at long term. If you don't look at long term value, if you don't look at creating things for long term value, you will always be fighting fire. Everything will always be urgent. All right. So just like any business, you need to ask yourself, what is my immediate goal? All right. What is my midterm goal? What is my long-term goal? So you got to invest a bit of time in each. Okay. Yes, I know some people say my business is all about fighting fire. Uh, every day I'm fighting fire. Okay, some business might be that if everybody's prepared to pay you good money just to fight fire. All right. Okay, but not all business. But then again, how long can you last if you are fighting fire every day lah? 对吗? Okay, next question.
Okay, so thanks for you sharing some assumptions, and so we also want to know, like looking back on your entrepreneur journey, can you share some key mistake or key challenge you encountered, and what some important lessons did you learn from that?
Yeah, okay. I think as I mentioned in my earlier answers, okay, mistakes are quite, I would say, one, I underestimate how long it takes to build a partnership. All right, because you may be ready, but your potential partner may not be ready, right? So often than not, when we all sit down and say, "Hey, this is exciting, let's do it together." Not everybody's exciting to say, "Hey, let's do it," right? But the moment you sit down and do, then you find that your partners may say, "Oh, I got other priorities. I want to spend more time with children or whatever." So so basically, so everybody's motivation is different, all right? So you just need to be aware of that. And in my case, as I mentioned earlier, so when I came out, I didn't expect so many people to call me and say, "Hey, Ping, I need your help with this. I need your help with that." And when you first came out, you think, "Oh, I've got a lot of time to help. Okay, no problem. I help, I help," right? But then it all start accumulating, right? So now my priority is to basically try to, you know, manage that and prioritize, yeah, who I want to help. I think that's important. And then, of course, the other mistake is, as I mentioned, that the market is ready for our product, right? Yeah, so, but then again, if I don't go to market, I won't know, right? So it's a question of when you develop something, you still have to go to market. And if things don't pan out the way that you want it to be, then you just need to review, adjust, moderate your speed, and basically find out what needs to be done to get the market ready, lah, right? Because just like every entrepreneur, you say, "I want to do it fast, I want to do it early," but then again, the market has to want to follow you. Okay. So the lessons learned, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, focus is important. Continuous learning is important because you still have to always get feedback. And then after you get the feedback, how do you adapt, right? And of course, for us right now is how do we scale up our team? It's important to scale up your team because if you don't scale up your team, you cannot grow because every day, as I say, you'll be fighting fire, right? So scaling up is important and how to build a team. Um, yeah, and what's your next question? Any questions?
Yeah. And like what your if we also want to know what would you consider your like some greatest moment because we talked
Uh,
about challenge before.
okay, I mean the greatest moment is always, I think, for everybody is that whatever that you set to achieve, you've achieved it. I think for everybody it's the same, right? Isn't it? I think I always believe in what I call small goals, right? Milestones, right? Okay, so as long as you have, yes, you have your big goals, but you have milestones. So every time if you achieve a milestone, you achieve a milestone. I mean, it is always a win, isn't it? It's, it is always a win. All right. So as long as you take the small wins, I think you are fine, right? And then it will and then it will accumulate to your ultimate goal. I mean, worst moments is really about. I won't call it worst moments. I basically say I don't know because for me I'm basically a person who is very very resilient, right? Because as I said, I've many years experience in building new business. I've many years experience where where projects other people have failed, even the managing director failed the project, he passed it to me, right? And then I just make it work. So for me, I see myself as somebody who is pretty resilient. All right. So yeah, when something don't pan out the way I want it to pan out, right? And as long as you know that you've done what is necessary, right? You just accept the lesson. Yeah, it may not be a good lesson. You accept the lesson, you learn from it, and you move on. Yeah. So yeah, you can say those are worst moments, but for me, I mean those are learning experience, right? You just need to be resilient about it. If you are not resilient, seriously, no point starting a business, right? Okay, because if you want to start business, that means you're always trying. That means you're doing things that people have not tried before, correct? So you just need to be prepared for failures. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, thank you for sharing those valuable experience, like reflecting your past journey. And the last question, we want to know what are your plans for the future of your venture?
Okay. So, like what I mentioned earlier, really is all about purposeful growth and strategic because you need to be very focused. So you need to know what are you spending your time on. What do you want to see growing? Right now, because I'm a travel agency, there's no escaping trying to expand into the digital travel platform, all right? Because everybody is buying their products online digitally, so that's something that I'm looking into. Uh, I've also mentoring students, work with some of my clients to develop sustainability programs. So that's something I'm looking at. Um, Mentorship is something that I have been doing, as I say, for more than 40 years. So I see myself continuing doing that. So that's not an issue. Um, there are people who have asked me to advise them on certain developments. I mean, I see myself continuing doing that. But of course, the question for us always, everybody wants free advice. Yes, there are people who also pay me for advice, which is nice. All right. But my concern really here is then how to balance it, lah. All right, how to balance my free advice, all right, that can lead to something, but at the same time, um, it's not just meaningful to me from a dollars and cents point of view, but also making sure that it help the client grow, lah. All right, and one of the reasons why I've also developed my own media platform is because it allows us to establish partnerships and collaboration with partners around the world. So, but that would mean that we also have to invest in the building of that platform, lah. And developing a media platform is something we have to look long term. Yeah. So basically, these are the things that's keeping me busy these days, lah. Yeah. Okay. Questions anymore?
Thank you. I think that's it.
Okay, so that's it lah. So quite straightforward lah. Okay.
you for
Oh,
me.
all right.
Thank you.
Hey, so
妙的话要说。
你说。
Thank you so much for your time today. We are really enjoy learning about your journey and experience. It's been very inspiring for us. Thank you again, and we wish you all best in the future. OK，
Okay.
捡到一
Yeah.
，Thank
题。
you very much. OK，谢谢你们吧。OK，
Thank you. Thank
OK
you.
OK
OK，
OK，
Thank
拜
you，
拜。
拜拜。